Welcome again to Joe Stonner Boxing. David Benavidez defeats Oleksandr Gvozdyk from Ukraine on a unanimous 12-round decision. He picks up the WBC interim light heavyweight title. I don't know why that is available. As we know, Beterbiev is the WBC champion. I know he was injured. He's got to have surgery and rehabilitation, but ignoring the belt, I mean, it was clearly a win for Benavidez. I had it 116, 112. One of the judges had it the same. I think one of the judges had it something ridiculous, like 119, 109 or so. I don't know. But it wasn't an 11 rounds to one fight. But it was a comprehensive victory for Benavidez. I think you can divide this fight into three sections. The first four rounds, first third of the fight, I gave every round to Benavidez. Next four, Benavidez won that section of the fight. But Gvozdyk came on quite strong in the last four rounds, which is why he didn't narrow the gap entirely, but he made it more competitive. He made it look a little bit more respectable. And you do have to wonder if he'd started what he was doing in that last third of the fight in the championship rounds, how could he have won the fight? I mean, they're both the same height, 6'2", but there's a 10-year age difference because Benavidez is 27, Gvozdyk's 37. But there's no doubt that Benavidez, to take on a guy of this quality in your first fight at 175 is laudable. But he did look like a guy who, he was thinner in the shoulders and the arms especially. Ever so slightly, a little bit of, not fat, but, maybe squeeze an inch of fat around the middle. He looked like a guy who just moved up. But I don't think there's any doubt that he can eventually settle into the division as a fully fledged light heavyweight. At 27, of course, he's coming into his physical prime. So as you get older, it's more difficult to take the weight off and so on. He could probably make super middleweight at a push with enough time anyway. But he did look, in the opening rounds, he looked like a real threat at 175 because he was putting it on Gvozdyk. He was firing very heavy punches, very sharp, fast punches, working the body very, very well. And after four rounds, I thought, Gvozdyk's going to get stopped here. Well, to his credit, he held his nerve and worked through the storm. He did go into his shell a little bit. There was one round, I can't remember which one it was. It's maybe at the end of the fourth or fifth, when he was battered and he walked back to his corner looking a bit worse for wear. He had some abrasions on his face. I think a very slight cut on one of his eyelids. Or maybe it wasn't cut. Maybe it was just a mark, a bad sort of graze. But definitely Benavidez looked the part. But then he began to sag a little bit. And like I say, in the last 4 or 5 rounds, he started to slow down a bit and look a bit like he was huffing and puffing. And whereas he'd been pinging Gvozdyk with these sharp, lethal-looking punches, the sting had gone out of him somewhat, and Gvozdyk was able to gather himself, and very good engine on Gvozdyk, especially when you consider the amount of punishment he took early on. He was able to take over in that last third of the fight, but it just wasn't enough. If this had been an old 15-rounder, that would have been an interesting little tussle to see who could have picked up those last 3 rounds. Benavidez had, a better last round, although I thought Gvozdyk kind of landed the slicker, more precise work. But Gvozdyk at 37, he had that long break after he got stopped by Beterbiev. He had a few years off. And actually said he retired and then he came back. He's had 3 wins since. And he's got something left. He's not a shot fighter, not by any stretch of the imagination. But Benavidez was just too young and too sharp and too quick. But Gvozdyk is a good, well-schooled fighter, just what you expect from a Ukrainian. And Benavidez, as cliched as it may sound, it will probably be a better fighter for those 12 rounds. Definitely, in fact, definitely will. He's beaten some good men in the past. He stopped Demetrius Andrade in his last fight, 6 rounds, but Andrade was never really more than a middleweight at the most. He outpointed Caleb Plant. That was a good win. But Plant showed a lot of guts in that fight because he was getting battered in the second half of the fight. But he hung tough and went the distance. And he's got other names on his record, like, you know, David Lemieux, Kyron Davies, Anthony Durrell. Back in the day, I think it's about 5 years ago now. He stopped him in 9. Benavidez is a very, very good fighter. And I can, because of his height, you know, the 6'2", long rangy arms. Yeah, I can sort of see why Canelo didn't want much of him. But although I always felt that Canelo with his experience and his skill and his craftiness, he should have got Benavidez when Benavidez was a bit younger. I think now that Benavidez has been 12 with Gvozdyk, it's going to be a lot more difficult for Canelo if they do eventually fight. The time to get Benavidez was when he was young and a bit wet behind the ears. This 12 rounds, this has elevated him. I'm quite sure of that. Absolutely. But anyway, it was a good fight. You know, good technical fight. Well done to Benavidez. I suppose they're going to set him up if Canelo don't want it. They're going to set him up for perhaps the winner of Beterbiev and Bivol when they do fight. Such a shame when that fight was called off. I was really looking forward to that one because there was that one and there was Fury Usyk. So you had the two undisputed fights, you know, 175 and heavyweight. That would have been great for boxing. But yeah, these things happen. And maybe at 40, after all those fights, you know, Beterbiev is winding down, breaking down maybe his body. For him to make light heavyweight at 40 and retain all his strength and his power is amazing. But maybe he's on the way out, and Benavidez will perhaps be one of the heir apparents, maybe the heir apparent. Although, yeah, we'll see. What did you think of the fight? Let me know. Benavidez is now 29 wins with 24 KOs, no draws, no defeats. Gvozdyk slips to 20 wins, 2 defeats, 1 draw. Let me know how far you think Benavidez can go. And yeah, I'll read your comments and answer them. Thank you very much for listening. Please like the video if you enjoyed it, and please hit the subscribe button if you want to subscribe, because you're helping the channel and it's free and it takes a second to hit the subscribe button. So do it. Spread the word about Joe Stunner Boxing. Many thanks, ladies and gentlemen. I will catch you later, and bye for now.